Hi everyone, it's Lee here, and finally, welcome to your first webinar training that I'm going to be doing for you. This is an excerpt that comes from my program Dialings for Millions, and what I've done is customized it specifically for Omega and what we're about to embark on together. So welcome. This is video one, and our topic today, and everything begins with mindset. So in the training is what you're going to do. So where are you now in your mindset? I have a good idea after spending a lot of time talking with you and going through things with everyone else. And then just some little maybe tricks, things that you can think about so we can have a good mindset. I mean, the mindset, yes, you need a good mindset for work and when your job, and certainly when you're on the phone with everybody, your mindset is focused on the customers and what they need and what they want, and that's awesome. And so it's great, but at the beginning of the end, it's all about the mindset, and mindset is really ultimately something that we can choose. And in choosing it ourselves, then we are taking a bit back more control, particularly when sometimes if you don't feel like you're in control or everything else, we can at least control that. And it helps. It helps not only in your job, it's going to help in your life, it's going to help in anything you may do beyond Omega Molding. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about today. I'm going to go there. So, oopsie. What is your come on, baby. So thinking about your mindset and thinking about what work is like right now and whether or not you want to come to work or not and all these things. And I'm not going to put a Band-Aid on something and say, oh, just be happy and things like that. I know it's a little bit more than that. So what I want to do is walk you through a few tools that I use, that I teach all my clients to use, I even teach my kids to use it. Try it on the dogs, but you know, they're quite reactive to it, but I think they have a pretty good mindset naturally, right? For the most part, even the poor ones who will come from that's a great background. So it is like, what is your mindset? And again, it is definitely for you to choose your mindset instead of it wreaking havoc over you and letting it just run amok like everything in life, right? You can either be proactive or be reactive. I think we've talked about that at some point too. So your reticular activating system, that's a real thing that's in your brain. I don't know where it is exactly in the brain, but it is in your brain, and that acts like your brain's Google search engine, for lack of better of a word. So you go into the computer and you type in Google, whatever you're going to type, right? Then all these things pop up. Well, it starts with, when you start with either one or two things, right? The first three letters is something that you often are looking for, so it knows that, and it's going to pop up those suggestions right away. Or it's going to pop up something that's incredibly popular that everyone's talking about. And our brain is kind of like that. It kind of goes in that direction. And we either know it, whether we know it or not, whether we're trying to actively direct it or not, that's just what happens. Think about it. Think about it when you're I don't know, something happens. Say, let's just talk dogs, since a lot of you have dogs, and of course, I have 9 million dogs right now. Dogs, it's like all of a sudden you happen to notice, you start seeing dogs wherever you go, you start meeting dog people, you start hearing people talking about dogs. Whereas someone could be with you who has no attachment or relationship or anything to dogs, who might not actually hear that. Does that make sense? I use it for an example, like when you get a car. And when you get a car, all of a sudden you notice everybody else is driving that car. And you're like, where the heck were they before? Another explanation is, when you're pregnant, or someone is pregnant, and you're excited about this baby coming. All of a sudden you start seeing babies and pregnant people wherever you go. So it's just that it's kind of like, because we're thinking about it, because it's top of mind for us, it's easier for us to find things to justify it that fall in line with that. Does that make sense? So with that, when we know that, part of our mindset is trying to focus on the things we want versus the things we don't want. right? And I know sometimes it's easier said than done. However, um, when you think about it, when you start talking, when you're talking about it, when you're living it and you're expecting it, then you get more of it. It's like whatever you expect, whether it's good or bad, that's what you're going to get. You can take two people who have a disease or in a very bad situation or something like that. They're not going to go through the same situation in the same way. And it does become a choice. Some people are very good to, it just happens that way. They're is naturally that way, but other people, we can make a choice as to how we want to see things and how we want to do things, or where we're going with where we are. We're not going to change the actual conditions of where you are right now, but as we start focusing more on what we want, we will be finding more of those that we want. We'll be seeing more of them. They'll be more ready for us to notice of what we do want. A good example is this is, because it's so easy. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. So just make a list. All right. So write down the things you don't like. Write down the things you don't want. And then say, well, okay, this is what I don't want. And this is what I don't like. What would I like instead? If I don't want this, what would I want? And what's the opposite of that? So if you do that, just do a couple things. Just write a couple things. Be it at work, be it in your life, this is for you. I mean, this is all about for you and to help you become better you, and wherever that goes. I mean, staying here at Omega, of course, and see where that goes, but in everything, this is for you. So if you can't think of what you want, so you can kind of focus on what you want or look for the things you want, then just make a list of what you don't want and then figure out what the opposite of that is. And then say, oh, well, yeah, that would be nice. I would like that. And why would you like that? And come up with reasons why you like that. And talk about why you like that. And share why you like that. And you'll be starting to see little glimmers at first. And then there'll be more and more. It's just the way it works. It's the way it works. So that's your reticular activating system. I call it the RAS, your RAS, whatever you want. Sometimes people want a good kick in the RAS. And it is that compass and it's focused, and it's like our own search engine, because we have so much information in our heads, we can't not everything's going to come out, but when you need it, it does. Another thing is, when you think about it, like I can tell you, when I start hearing songs from like the 70s and the 80s, I know all the words. I haven't heard it in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and yet when the song comes up, I know the words, because it was packed somewhere in my brain. So we can pick up those things when it becomes relevant. So we just make a habit of picking up the things and focusing on the things that we want to happen. And I know that sometimes it's difficult to do, but it's just like, what would be a better option, or what would be something better? And just focus and just think about it and think about it and talk about it and write about it and look for it. And then all of a sudden you'll be seeing as well. Okay. So we talk about passion and motivation, and when we were talking last week and everything, and I really, I know that I'm asking you to, and the company is asking you to be doing something that you may or may not really want to be doing, and adding into your already hectic jobs and positions of what you're doing now. So the thing is that's why it's important that we're in this together, and we're going to do this in such a way that you do find the inspiration more than the motivation. Because sometimes you're motivated out of necessity to do things you may or may not want to do, correct? So if we can try to find a way that it's going to bring a little bit of passion and a little inspiration, and it's going to be worth your while to do this. Omega's while, of course, and help continue building the business, but you as the core of the business and the heart center of the business and the one who are always talking to the customers, it just makes sense that you would be, well, you are an integral part of the company, but it would make sense that you would be an integral part of also helping building the business, as you're the ones who has the most communication with all the customers all the time. So this is one of my favorite sayings, activities, and thought processes. All right. So be, do, have. So what does that mean, really? Be. I mean, we all are being a certain way. Some of us like the way we're being. Some of us will wish we were being a different way, but we all are being a certain way, right? We're being. That's who we are, right? We are either funny or we're quiet or we're um, outspoken or we're rebellious or we're humble or, I mean, whatever it is, that's what we that's who we are. We know who we are. We know if we're quiet. You know your B personality, your personality traits as well. It comes, it fits in here that we was talking about as well. So that's your B. And then you have what you do and you don't do. Things that we do, things that we don't do. So who we are being and what we're doing or not doing is going to wind up with what we currently have, which we may or may not like, right? So, but that is all a result of what's going on in our head and what are we doing? And that gives us our results. So in order to have different results, then we're going to have to figure out probably, do we need who, you know, we probably have to be thinking different things in our head and being differently and doing different things, which is acting differently. So it's a choice, and how we do that, figure out what you want to have. Just figure out one thing you want to have in your life, whatever it is. Okay? Now you know what you have, and you don't have it now, right? So you know that something's going to have to change because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result, right? So you know, in order to have something different, things have to be done differently. And that's what we're trying to do here, to have different results and ultimately good results for you, and ultimately allow you to get more out of your job and more of your position financially, rewardingly, and all like that. That is really what we're doing here. But to have that, that means we're all going to have to be thinking in a different way and doing different things. Does that make sense? So you figure out what you want to have, whatever that is, and then you need to figure out who you need to be and what you need to do to get there. It's very simple. If you're not sure how to begin, just find somebody who seems to have what you want, and then just look at what they do on a daily basis and find out and how are they being, how are they acting. You know, acting and doing are two different, are two separate. You know, requires actions and how they acting, but and what are they doing? But the being part is the thinking, and like how are they talking and how are they phrasing and what is their outlook and what, you know, all that sort of thing, right? But if you want to have something different, who do you need to be? I'm going to take just a basic example. Let's just say you don't run at all right now, and you want to be a marathon runner, right? So what you want to have is to have a successful marathon. I want to take something that's completely neutral away from everything. So you want to run a marathon. So you want to be a marathon runner, right? You're not currently one, and you want to be a marathon runner. Well, what's it going to, you know, what do you need to be? Well, to something like that, you need a lot of commitment. You need a lot of determination. You need a lot of training. You need all sorts of things that, you know, if you want to do this, but if you want to be a marathon runner. Now, what do you need to do to be a marathon runner? Well, you got to run. At a minimum, you got to start running, even if it's around the block and building up to that, but you got to at least run. You probably want to make sure that and another action would be to be eating well, and of course doing the trainings and things like that. Another thing could be reading books or watching movies about marathon runners, something like that. All of these things will actually help you get closer to that. But if you say, I'm going to be a marathon runner, and then you decide, oh, what the heck, I'm just going to go sit on the couch, that's not going to get you there, right? So that's all. So if you think about what you want to have in your life, think about one thing you would like to have, and then just who do you need to be? What kind of person already has that? Because whatever you want, somebody out there has it already, right? So what kind of person has that, and what are they doing to have that? So we flip it around. So I'm hoping, I'm not hoping, oh, I am hoping, because it's going to be your choice, right? Because this is all about mindset and your mindset. I'm hoping that when we are really getting going and moving ahead and starting to and getting involved and adding the sales, and again, I don't want to call it sales, I want to just call it building relationship, being of value and of service to all the customers, which will result in them purchasing more for whatever reason. Oh, that's crazy. I don't know what happened there. When we start doing that, if you are focusing on what you want to have, it's actually going to make it easier for you to begin with, because it's going to be awkward. We all know it's going to be awkward because you know what? We haven't done this really before. We haven't done it in this way before, I should say. So it's something new. It's something we're not comfortable with. So let's just take that off the table because we already know that. So that's why I want you to kind of focus on what you want to have. Story of Disney World. Walt Disney built the Cinderella Castle first, because building Disney World down in Florida, of course, in the hot sun and everything else, in Orlando, and I mean, they had to go through, a lot of stuff. So to keep everybody inspired, he had the castle because that's what they were aiming for, and it helped. It helped. So, what's your Cinderella castle, or is it something you want to have? And again, and let's focus on that as we're going forward with this. And it really does start with you be, in order to, it's all about which is your thinking innately. It is your thinking about who you are and what you're thinking and what's going on in your head. And then the do, which then of course equals what you have. Because you're thinking, I don't have to, but your thinking is what starts everything, right? And our thinking comes from what I call your identity iceberg. What is your identity iceberg? All right, so yes, this photo is photoshopped, of course. I don't know anybody who's got that big of a lens to catch the whole thing about iceberg. However, an iceberg, right? All you see of the iceberg is this top. But what's down below the surface, if you will, is really the problem, right? It was what was below the surface is what sunk the Titanic, not the stuff that was showing on the top. And when we think about that's how it relates to us as people, is that what we show the world is that tip of the iceberg, right? That's what goes to the world, and that comes out in our behaviors that we have, and as well as which comes from actions that we take, which comes from decisions we make, right? So we make decisions, which is our thinking, which leads us to taking actions, and those actions are our behavior. So those are what we show to the outside world that everybody sees. However, what's guiding those actions and decisions and ultimately behaviors is everything under the surface, under our surface. And what is that? It's the skills that we have and we don't have, right? It's the beliefs that we have or don't have. I mean, are your beliefs positive? Are they limiting? Are they supportive? They're beliefs. And oftentimes our beliefs come from the values. These are our own family values, our personal values, the organization values that you're seeing that come from the values. And then, of course, that leads to our identity. And our identity even goes further because of things, our family, our upbringing, our age, our gender, all these things, they lead into our identity. And of course, we have many different identities depending on whom you're talking to, right? We're all a child of somebody. Many of us are parents to children, parents as well, all different things. So these are the things below the surface that go into creating really who we are. And finally, and this you say is the environment. So everything that's formulating everything that we show in the world comes from the environment in which we live in and come from. So that is the do, is the outside world. The do, everybody's seeing what we're doing or not doing. That's there. And then the be is what comes from our environment, and our results is what we end up having. So what is your environment like? Now, again, it could very well be, there's environments that you can control, there's environments you can't control. But the one environment you can control most of all is the one in your head. So what is the environment like, and how is that affecting? But even your work environment, your home environment, your relationship environment, all of these there's all different environments. So what's going on in all the different environments, and which is now impacting what you're doing on the outside. I am a big fan of Marianne Williamson. She's like my guru, and this is one of my favorite phrases of hers. This is my second favorite. You must learn way to think before you can master way to be, right? Because it comes thinking, because when we're learning something new and doing something new, we actually have to think about doing it, right? Probably when you're driving your car home at the end of the day, you don't have to think about it. All of a sudden, boom, you wind up in your driveway and boom, you're there, right? Ever thought about, I can tell you I've done it where I'm driving and I wind up in a completely different place because I'm on autopilot and I'm used to going to one place all the time. So that's where I just start going. Even this morning, no, even yesterday morning, I did that. In my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to Uniondale, but in actuality, I was going to Woodbury. So I had to catch myself. Otherwise, I would have wound up in Uniondale, because when you're in autopilot, that's what happens. So when we know that, particularly when you're going someplace for the first time, well, now it makes it easy. You get a GPS. You got, for most of us, we all got the GPS. We got everything we need to help us get where we're going. And yet, so that makes it easier. But on the other hand, you just need to know where you're going. It makes more concerted effort than when you start doing things. And that's why it's the thinking. First of all, you got to be able to think that you can do this. And then you got to put the effort into trying to do it. So it kind of starts like this. We start off with our beliefs, and our beliefs really come from the media. They come from our parents. They come from our family. They come from society, from culture, from you name it. All of these things work at forming our beliefs. And those beliefs then give us the thoughts that we're thinking, which then lead to the actions that we are taking. And beliefs are also keeping us from thinking certain thoughts as well, right? As well as taking certain actions, which winds up giving us our results that we have in life. And this is why we have what we have right now. Just want to take a minute and we can set that in. So as we're embarking on this journey together, this is going to be a really, really big part of what we're going to be dealing with. It's going to start with your beliefs, where your beliefs are, and that's clearly based on a history in your own life and thoughts in your own life, but the history of being at Omega and things that have gone on before or not gone on before, right? And that's why it's leading to those thoughts, etc., etc., etc. So we need to try working on your beliefs and changing your beliefs and your belief system. It can be a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it's going to help you move forward into wherever that forward is. Remember, we're doing this. Yes, we're doing for Omega, and we want to do this, and we want to be able to enhance the sales in Omega, which will personally enhance your life. We want to do that too. And that is important. But this is important for anything, and where you're going to be going from here, and so forth and so on, or not. And again, that's fine too. So what are the beliefs that are starting to drive your thoughts? Why don't you take a minute and think about it? Or seconds. So once you begin to understand what those beliefs are, now we can add in, how do we change and how do we do things differently? And I'm using this formula for change here, right? So to change, to do something different, we have to do something different, right? To have something different, we have to do something differently. And the way we start doing that is that your satisfaction of where you are right now times the vision that you have for your future, your near future, your medium-term future, your larger future, times taking that first step towards that vision, it ultimately still has to be greater than your resistance to it. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's a couple things. There's two things. As human beings, this is what we do. It's human nature. We either, when it comes to changing, we either change because we want to move away from pain or we want to move towards pleasure. 90% of us take action and do things to get away from pain. In other words, when something is bothering us so much they can't stand it, that's going to prompt us to actually do something, which is take that first step. So all these factors that become are what's going to hold you back from making a change. All these different things are going to get in the way from you making a change, because there's always going to be that resistance. Because guess what? When you're changing, it's doing something new. You've never done it again. It's uncomfortable. And people don't like to get uncomfortable. Even if where they are right now is not where they really want to be, it's just comfortable. And that's why we don't change. So we have to understand that that's there, and how do we move past it is these three aspects, right? It's you understanding your dissatisfaction and why you're dissatisfied, understanding what the vision is and where you could be going, and also first step, taking a step, one step at a time, taking action. You want to decrease, ultimately you want to decrease the dissatisfaction. As you're moving forward, it's going to start decreasing the satisfaction, right? And you want to keep focusing on the vision, on your Cinderella castle, if you will, as you're going forward. So the D and the V, the dissatisfaction and the vision, what's wrong and what can be. That's going to play against each other all the time, and it's going to depend on who's winning and how things will work out. And it's just up for us in our thoughts, thinking, because ultimately a belief is actually, it goes back and forth. A belief is just a thought we keep thinking, and we keep thinking these thoughts out of habits because this is what we've done, because it's comfortable. Those are our comfortable beliefs, and those are our comfortable thoughts. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a really great quote on this, and I really love it. It's like, is your vision for your future, are you more enthralled? What is it exactly? Is the vision of your future stronger than your addiction to your past? And that's all it is. And addiction is a hard word, but it's just comfortable. So we are looking to be shaking up your boat here a little bit, and expect there's going to be resistance. It's going to prop up. You're going to be doing great all of a sudden, and boom, something's going to happen, and it's going to want to take you out, take you down. It's like, that's done. I'm never doing this again. This isn't working. Blah blah blah. Which also kind of goes towards back to the first thing I talked about, your reticular activating system. If you keep focusing on why it's not working, what's not working, that's all you're going to look for. That's all you're going to be open to, is what's wrong. So even if you're forcing it in the beginning because it's uncomfortable, start focusing on, well, what's right? Well, what's good? Or what can be? I mean, just in the beginning as you're getting used to this. And this is where a lot of this is going to be coming through, where I'm going to be, once we really get underway, we're going to be dealing with this all the time, because it's just natural. You're going to have great days, not great days, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to work that together. So to get you thinking, I'm going to give you two sheets that you can play around with. One is your current identity. So what is your current identity? And it's going to be a paper. I'll show it in a minute. That you'll get to go through and figure all this out. You're going to get two sheets of your current identity as well as what your desired identity is. And the same thing. So it's your, what is it? Why is it that way? What are the behaviors? What are the skills? What are the beliefs? What are your values? And what's the environment? Just understanding what's bringing that. And it looks like this. I don't know why this didn't come out it's a sheet. So my current identity is what? Again, that doesn't matter. My current identity is doubtful. My current identity is excited. My current identity is, I don't know, you fill in the blank, right? who I am now, really. And that's okay. Whoever you are now really is fine and perfectly fine, because that's just where you are, and this is just all information gathering, right? All information gathering, data gathering. We do a lot of that, don't we? We do, because it helps us move forward. Once we really get a sure footing on where we are now, then we can move ahead properly. And so then you can just write in the why, the behaviors, the skills, the beliefs, the values, the environment. What's causing you to be who you are now? And that's now. Then what I want you to do is just, who do you really want to be? And you know what? If you don't know who you want to be, start off, like I said before, well, who don't you want to be? And then what's the opposite of that? Same thing. If it's not easy for you to think about who you want to be, think about, just think about the opposite, and then that will give you what you want to be. And you're going to do the same thing. Oops, I have to change that. It should have been my who I am going to be. And that's it. It's just to kind of get you started, because that's going to really help you work through your identity as we move forward. So wrapping up, I don't know why this thing's coming late. We talked about the formula for change. We talked about your reticular activating system, your be, do, have. And go ahead and write down and, dream about your haves and what you want, what you have now, what you have now, and dream about what you want to have. Your identity iceberg. And I've asked you to complete the, identity iceberg. Oh. So just what are your top learnings? And again, what I've asked you to do after watching every training is to take one thing, at least one thing you're taking away from this training, and email me what that one thing is. Because what's that going to do? Number one, is going to show me that you actually watched it. And number two, that you were actually listening to it. Because again, this really is for you. This really is all about you. And it is my intention to help you become more of who you want to be, to get you towards that be, wherever that is, through this process. And this is an excellent, excellent, excellent way to begin. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter how long you stay, maybe upgrade in the company, whatever happens, this exercise and this, what we're implementing here in Omega, is so good for you, for anything you do going forward. And I promise you that. I do promise you that. So thank you for taking this ride for me. Thank you for remaining open with an open mind, and have fun with this. And congratulate yourself and get ready. Wrapping it up, and bye-bye.